Okay. Thank you for the reminder, and thanks for bearing with me here. So as I said, we're really trying to draw from the work that we're doing in Chicago around informing, equipping, and engaging folks in order to participate in our information systems and spreading that good word around to the rest of the country and the rest of the world. So that is our mission and vision, a little bit about the people behind City Bureau. Hey, that's me when I had shorter hair. Me and the three other co-founders of City Bureau, Andrea Hart, Harry Backlund, and Daryl Holliday are other folks who started us up together. Nowadays, Andrea is actually in a divinity school, about to do really awesome other stuff that is also about community building, but a little bit different. And Daryl and Harry are still on the team, and we are the leadership team at City Bureau. We actually started back in the day in Woodlawn at the experimental station. So for those of you who are familiar with that amazing community space, we miss it, we love it. We still go to the farmer's market, but we are now based in Bronzeville. This is a team. So not pictured, Max Resnik is here on the screen next to you. So just pretend, just juxtapose his face onto the pumpkin, and Sarah Conway as well. This is our team from our recent community event at the Bee Library in Bronzeville. We had a pumpkin pop-up. It was a good time. We drank some hot cider, painted some pumpkins, and had everybody, from our community who participate in our 3 programs come out. So this is the team that you'll be joining. And I will pass the next slide to Cristina to talk a little bit more about how we do our work at City Bureau.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure to include this because this is, our mission is important, our work is important, our values. If you go to our website, you'll see our values, super important. But equally important is the way those values show up internally, right? And making sure that how we show up to meetings, how we interact with each other, how we build relationship with one another are connected to these values. And these values were developed by our team for our team. And we, every quarter, we reflect on these values, right? And we make sure that we're, staying accountable to one another and to these values. So I wanted to share that because sometimes when you're looking for a job, that's the part that you're constantly wondering, right? What's the culture like? And I just wanted to share, this is what the culture is like. These are the things that we value, and that we hold each other accountable for. And back to you, Bettina.
Sure, I'll jump back in. So, that last slide is about how we do our work. This slide is about what the work is, what is the product, what is the thing that we're providing for our community. These are our 3 programs. So all of them are meant to sort of simulate and show what journalism could be like if it was more in conversation with the folks who we're serving, formerly known as the audience, but to City Bureau, it's everyone who's in our community, people who help produce the work, who talk about the work, who are teaching and learning about it all the time. The 3 programs are the Public Newsroom, which is free monthly workshops that are usually talking about different topics in the news and helping people sort of dissect what has the coverage been, how do we affect it, how do we change it if we want it to be changed, and what's missing from the conversation. The Civic Reporting Fellowship is our more traditional training program. So for folks who want to actually become journalists or actually who want to try it out to see if maybe that's the direction that they want to go in. It pairs less experienced folks with more experienced folks to make sure there's a co-learning model where we work together on projects, which we'll be talking about a little bit more later. And then our third program is the Documenters program, which is where we train and pay people to hold local government accountable, mostly through attending public meetings and taking notes at them. Some of you might know that there are a lot of public meetings in Chicago and across the country, but not all of them get covered by local media, unfortunately, and that is to the detriment of us all. So we train folks to do that, to really democratize the process of journalism, and also to improve the way that we talk about local government and accountability at the city level. So today we're giving an overview of the engagement reporter position. In particular, this position is for somebody who has 3 or more years of professional experience. That means either you've been working in a newsroom or you've been freelancing for professional publications. So we really are looking for somebody who has already started their career and has gotten some experience, and it wants to take it to City Bureau in order to expand on their skills around community engagement and reporting, especially around civic issues. So I know a lot of folks maybe get their career started in like music and art and culture, and we love that, but we are looking for somebody who has covered civic issues before, so politics, education, health, wellness. I guess everyone now is a COVID reporter. So, I would say that, even if you have, even if your title has been arts and culture reporter, but you have reported on things like, what are venues doing in the age of COVID-19? What venues are opening or closing? Things that are more related to the way that society is organized, and a little bit related to policy, not necessarily 100% policy. Those are the types of folks that we're looking for. And if you can demonstrate that through your application, even if it doesn't come out fully in your resume, that's totally fine. That's what we love to see. Oh, sorry, let me just make sure I hit the other notes there on the last slide, Cristina. Okay, cool. Yes. So as I had said, that City Bureau's target audience is in Chicago's BIPOC communities. In particular, City Bureau is focusing our work in communities in Chicago that are 90% or more people of color. So that is only about a third of the city. When we say the South and West Sides, for those of you who are familiar with Chicago, the South and West Sides account for maybe over 2/3 of the city. But we're really narrowing it down to communities that are 90% or more people of color, which also, unfortunately, because of the legacy of segregation in Chicago, are the places that are the most disinvested, where wealth has been removed over the course of many decades, in order to really rectify that problem of inequality in our city. So that's our target audience. At the same time, our engagement reporter is going to be part of our fellowship, which means that you get to mentor and train early career reporters. It is such a rewarding and amazing process to be part of the fellowship and to be a team leader there. Not only do you really get to push yourself and your reporting skills, you get to help other people learn and push them. And like, truly, I think that co-learning model and the ability to really exchange and learn from different people all the time is why a lot of us become journalists. And that's really a beautiful part of this particular position. All right, so what are the actual projects that you'll be reporting on? We create lots of different editorial products, but this really sums it up well. The Community Healing Series is something we did earlier this year, really featuring profiles of people who are holding space for healing, mental health, whether it's mental health or like healing the community, healing the land through farming. We did these profiles to really provide a counter narrative to what you often see when it comes to like protest and activism, that like a lot of that narrative can be about aggression or destructiveness. The media narrative can sometimes really twist the way that folks organize. And so we created this counter narrative, which is something that we really value at City Bureau. The other type of story that we do is really deeply about the issues. So the Housing Cliff series was about housing during COVID-19, in particular, people who are getting evicted despite the eviction moratorium, and really using deep community engagement to reach people who were actively being evicted, and uplifting their voices to make sure that they were heard in the ongoing policy conversation. And then the last thing that we do, which I think is super important and sort of undervalued in our industry, is producing information resources. So those of us in journalism are really used to an editor saying, like, what's the story? What's the story? Who's the character? You know, at City Bureau, we believe that just because there isn't a perfect character or a perfect narrative doesn't mean that this information doesn't need to be passed around. And in fact, that means that the information is even more valuable because it isn't necessarily being used that frequently. And so we try to make information available for people the way that they want to find it. So this COVID Resource Finder is a database where folks were early on in the pandemic sort of overwhelmed by the different things that were available to people, and you know, really wanted a way to easily search and filter the resources out there. So this is something that we created last spring and have been maintaining through the winter, and actually, yeah, up till now. Lots of resources still out there for folks. So I breezed through those things because it looks like, you know, folks are actually here to learn about the other positions. But I'll pass it back to Cristina to give an overview of the other positions open besides engagement reporter.
Yeah, so we have these other positions open. We have the network resource and engagement coordinator that will be managed by Max, who is here. We have the community engagement director that will be managed by Bettina, and then the operations coordinator that will be managed by our operations manager. And, you know, these are all different levels, different entry levels, different skills that we're looking for. But I'm going to pause to make sure that we get to some of your questions. So if you all can please start sharing your questions. Oh, I see the poll now. I didn't see that before. Cool. So there's if you all can start posting your questions in the chat, then we can start answering the questions.
So we've got a request to see the last slide again, Cristina. Maybe we can put it back up for just a little bit so people can read through the descriptions. And in the meantime, I see the poll shows a lot of interest in the community engagement director position. So I might start off with describing that, and then the next one is the network position. So I'll pass it to Max in a sec. But yes, the community engagement director. So this is a Chicago-based position. It is for people who are really deeply already oriented in the BIPOC communities of Chicago. The community engagement director does not have to have journalism experience, however, should definitely have existing relationships and an understanding of how to produce events, especially event series, and really have it. Basically, we call it product thinking. It's this idea that, you know, when you are creating something for folks, not only do you go in with a goal and a plan, but you have a way to evaluate it at the end of whether or not this product has served the needs of the people who you're aiming to serve. So that's what the community engagement director should know about. I have just seen somebody asking whether or not the network position needs to have journalism experience. So I'm going to pass it to Max to give an overview of that.
Yeah, thank you. So then for the network role, we love it if folks have an understanding of the journalism ecosystem, but really this role is a lot about community organizing. It's about understanding the needs of the different stakeholders in the Documenters network in all of the different cities, figuring out what we can be doing to best support them as they're doing their work across the country. Journalism is a plus, but not required.
I just want to also point out that is the only job that we have up right now where you can live anywhere you want. So, you know, Max representing Brooklyn right now, but anywhere in the US is good for the network position. And the others are all based in Chicago. Cristina, do you want to give an overview of the operations job as well?
Sure. So the operations job is for entry-level folks who have done administrative work. This is really about our office. We have a new office in Bronzeville, and we want to make sure that there's someone that is building all of the systems and processes that we need to maintain that office and make sure that we are serving our community from that office. So, entry level, some administrative experience, but definitely someone who is paying attention to detail and is really really wants to make sure that the systems that we're building make sense for not just our team, but our community as well. And then we have a question here. Are Chicago-based positions limited to folks who live directly in those underserved communities?
You want to take that, Cristina?
So I think that it's not limited to folks who live directly in those underserved communities, but I think especially for the community engagement director, it's super important that people applying know these communities, have built relationships in these communities, right? Because that's the point of our work, is to continue to build relationships and continue to engage our community in that way.
Mm-hmm. I would also say that, even though, and you've probably seen in the job descriptions, City Bureau is not the kind of place where you go to the office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. However, the positions that are based in Chicago should expect to be spending a significant amount of time either, within the communities, working on the ground, talking to people, meeting with folks, hosting open office hours, which is the thing that we used to do pre-COVID, and man, can't wait to do it again. And for the operations person, definitely we'll be spending time in our Bronzeville office. So it is very much, there's a lot of in-person work to be done, and in-person work is definitely a huge, impactful part of what we do at City Bureau. I also got a DM here, and feel free to DM me if you want to ask a question, but are not comfortable posting in the chat. Can you talk a bit about City Bureau's growth and the goals you're looking to achieve with these new and expanded roles? Who is doing this work now, or is anyone? Max, do you want to answer that one first?
Sure. So the question again was, how do these new roles apply to City Bureau's growth? And do you mind just saying it one more time? I was looking at one of the questions while you were saying that out loud. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. It says, can you talk a bit about City Bureau's growth and the goals you're looking to achieve with these new roles, and also who is doing the work now?
Yeah. So on the Documenters Network side, we're building out a network of cities and communities across the country that have their own local documenters programs. So City Bureau doesn't have staff in each of these cities, but we serve as a kind of a network hub, providing training and resources, encouragement, connections, cross-city reporting, collaborative opportunities. And I'm seeing all these messages coming in. This is awesome. And so right now on the Documenters Network team, that's Daryl Holliday, who's one of the co-founders of City Bureau, and me. And this new staff role will be supporting the two of us. So we'll be a team of 3 working to support currently 4 cities. And we're looking to grow that over the upcoming years and adding new communities into the network.
You want to take this other question too, Max? How much travel is expected? Will there be site visits?
Yeah, great question. So right now we're doing a lot of our work remotely. There's opportunities to travel, I think, once COVID allows us to be able to go and work more closely with these new cities when they're beginning their programs. And we like to we're hoping to be able to convene people regularly to be able to learn with each other and across the network. I also have a DM question here as well. Do you have to be a documenter for City Bureau to qualify for the network resource position, or is being a community organizer the primary qualification? Are these newly created positions? So to answer the second part first, yes, this is a newer position, but you do not need to be a current documenter to apply. This is understanding and knowledge of the way that the documenters network and the documenters programs work is really important. But community organizing really is the core of that position.
Yeah, and I can take I know the different positions have different application deadlines, but and most positions looking for start dates. And I would just say that, you know, a lot of the start dates are somewhere in December / January, depending on, you know, how the timeline, depending on the structure of the position. So I would say by the end of the year, we're looking to hire. And then Bettina, if you can can you talk about what types of events CB is looking for? Is there latitude by the community engagement director to help formulate these, or are they already roughly set?
Yeah, so this is actually a great question, you know, just sort of talking about City Bureau's growth in general. So, you know, Max is just talking about how we're growing our national impact. We just emerged from a strategic planning process for the last, you know, 3/4 of a year, basically, and really emerged with a sense of clarity that not only does City Bureau need to go wide in terms of nationally to be able to make sure that folks across the country can access the stuff that we're doing, but also deep in Chicago and really committing and doubling down on our racial equity commitment in the communities that are 90% or more people of color. And so I'm saying that because the community engagement director is going to be tasked with making sure we are reaching these communities and that we are serving these communities. And so if the events need to change, if you're looking at the way that we currently do events and you're like, this obviously isn't working, like I've talked to tons of people, we've got a lot of feedback, and like we gotta switch gears, that's the way that we're gonna go, right? So reaching people in these 15 zip codes that we've identified is the most important thing that we're doing in the next 3 years. And pretty much anything else on the line is good to like willing to be changed in order to make sure that we're serving folks. Do we feel pretty good about some of the programming that we have because we've been shopping it over the last 5 years? Yeah, we feel pretty good about it. But you know, there's always room for improvement. There's always somebody who you're not hearing because you're busy listening over here. And we're really open to that. It's the same for the engagement reporter as well. That position in the past has been taken mostly by our team leaders who come in 10-week increments to participate in our fellowship. We are realizing that the team leader position is tough. You know, you got to spend a lot of time mentoring folks, you're reporting at the same time, sometimes you're doing a little bit of editing. So we realized that that contract position was not you know, as appealing as we wanted it to be, and that's why we turned it into a full-time position. In terms of the community engagement director role, that work has been split up amongst the 3 teams. Basically, everyone who runs a program at City Bureau has been in charge of their own community engagement, and we're looking to hire somebody to make sure that we're really aligning that work across the 3 programs, who really has a broad view of like, who are we reaching and who are we not reaching. So that's why that is a new position for us. Let's see, I'm going to knock out a few quick questions here. If you've applied for one role, feel free to apply for another role. I mean, if you're interested in working with us, come on through. Let's see, when looking at resumes, do you look at transferable skills or are you looking for apples to apples comparisons? That's a great question. Cristina?
Can you say that one again?
When looking at resumes, do you look at transferable skills or are you looking for apples to apples comparisons?
Oh no, absolutely transferable skills. We are looking for all of your lived experiences, your identity, all of that matters. So transferable skills are super important in these positions. Absolutely. And I wanted to say one more thing about the community engagement director. I think that for us, it's not just about the events, but it's the outcome, right? It's like the strategy behind these events. Like, what are we hoping to gain, and what are we hoping to build via these events? So I just wanted to share that in terms of like the way that the events end up looking. It all depends on the strategy that this person builds and puts together along with other members of our team.
All right. Who reports to the community engagement director? So the community engagement director will report to me as the co-executive director of Chicago programs. And then our community resource organizer, Ellie Mejia, is the person who will report to that person. We're really looking for someone who's great at working across teams, though, because as I mentioned, we have 3 programs, and we need that person to set that strategy around like who are we reaching and how with those 3 programs. I have a question here about conflict resolution at City Bureau. How do we all work through tension and conflict? It's a really good question. There's a few different ways that we do it. I mean, we have like an official policy, but in reality, you know, like a policy only gets so far, right? So I think that, you know, the slide that Cristina put up about what we expect of ourselves and each other is one of the ways that we really orient ourselves around like how do we talk through things that are happening at City Bureau. If there's conflict, we refer back to those values a lot, I think. And then the other thing that I would say is, you know, we work with a few different third-party coaches who help us. In particular, we have a communications coach who is open to talk to staff at any time. You know, City Bureau has her on retainer, and she's really helpful for a lot of our staff to go to if they need someone to sort of talk them through a conflict that's happening and to help coach them towards a productive way of resolving it directly with the person if possible, and if not, bringing in people at different levels who might have another way to help resolve that conflict. Though I know we're working on something, you know, more resources for that. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Cristina.
I'll just add that I think we lean into restorative practices, and we're going to be training on that specifically because, like I said before, you know, the policies come to life every day, right? How we interact with each other every day. And so I think that for conflict resolution, we all lean into restorative practices, but also making sure that we show up with the values that I mentioned before. And especially between like managers and direct reports. So someone asked, can you talk about professional development, CB staff, co-sign or recommend, quote to see the commitment to staff development?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that in the chat, Max, about the City Bureau does provide $1,000 a year for professional development for each staffer, of which you basically get to choose whatever you want to do. You know, one example is the Management Center, excellent place to go, one of my faves. We have had folks use it for things like getting a facilitation training, going to journalism conferences, you know, workshops, books, classes. I don't know. Are there other examples that I'm missing?
I think we lean into leadership development trainings where it's, you know, beyond like just, you know, the Management Center focuses a lot on like who you are as a manager or a direct report dealing, you know, working with your manager. But we also recommend and share opportunities for your own leadership development and professional growth, right? So I want to, let's say you want to work on this one skill, and you yourself say, hey, I want to do this one writing class, for example, because I want to be a better writer, then you can use your stipend towards that.
We have a question in the chat about deep dives into the city's 15 zip codes. Has City Bureau made those zip codes publicly available? And does City Bureau have any presence / impact on the suburban metro area?
I could answer that. We haven't published those yet. We're currently, because we just wrapped up the strategic plan, we're working on a communication plan to be sort of like the caboose on the end of the strategic plan train, to write more openly about what we're talking about here. So actually, y'all are getting a sneak peek. But yeah, the 15 zip codes. I mean, you can find them if you just look up what are the ones with more than 90% people of color, and you can probably expect to see a blog about that in like the next month or so, whenever we are able to get that work together, and the research that we did as part of our strategic training, or I'm sorry, strategic planning. And there was a second half of that question, so I'm forgetting. Suburban metro area. So we definitely have an impact. I think there's definitely a lot of stories that we do that are related to the suburbs in one way or another, but it's not our target audience. So I would say any presence or impact tends to be incidental. Sometimes we work with very particular communities that spill over the suburban line, knowing that, borders, who needs them? But there's definitely stories that we've done, for instance, about the metro on the south side, where we talk to a lot of folks in the suburbs. We have worked with a lot of immigrant communities who they might have like an immigrant center in Chicago, but they're like, most of us actually live out here. And so we don't shy away from that, but we don't go out of our way to say like, let's focus on this particular suburb right now. I also got a question here about how often do we engage in strategic development, reflection, improvement, and are all staff involved in this process? Actually, Cristina has done a lot of work on that, so I'll pass to her.
Yeah, I was going to say all the time, I think one thing that is part of our culture is these moments of reflection and making sure that they're inclusive, right? And making sure that there's equity of voice in not just our like verbal reflection, but also in our surveys, also in the way that we build these, these strategies, right? Like we just did a gallery walk with all the different priorities for our organization, and everybody got to input some of their ideas, right? We do these like cross training where we share out about our work and then have the opportunity for people in our team to ask questions or go deeper on a specific topic. So absolutely moments of reflection that is super important for our work, because it is in those moments of debrief and reflection that we grow, right? And that we challenge each other. So just, to answer your question, all the time.
All right, last call for the questions here. There were some really good ones, so appreciate everyone who put something out there. For those of you who did not want to ask in this forum, you always have the option to email jobs@citybureau.org. Oh, all right, I forgot we had this slide. Awesome. All right, so all of our jobs are posted at citybureau.org/hiring. There's also a link there to join documenters if anybody is interested in joining documenters. I saw somebody message me about that. Yeah, and any closing thoughts, Cristina or Max?
The Documenters Network is growing. We're doing some really cool stuff. We'd love to have you join the team. It's super fun. Get to work with super smart, exciting, inspirational people in a bunch of cities across the country. And you get to hang with all the cool people in Chicago as well, who are doing amazing things locally. And it's a great, if you like the local and you like the national and you like figuring out how ways to get people in community with each other, apply for that resource and engagement coordinator position. Cristina?
Yeah, I just want to say that you do belong. You are worth it. You are enough, right? So if you're thinking about, should I apply? Do I fit in? Do I qualify? Like, the first step is applying. And I just want to share, it takes courage. It takes courage to apply. Doing the job search can be an overwhelming process, but just doing the application is the first step, and I welcome you and invite you to do it.
That was lovely. Thanks so much, Cristina and Max, for joining. Thank you to all of you who came out to hear more about our positions. Hope you learned a little something about City Bureau, maybe a little something about yourself, and hope you all have an excellent Monday evening. Thanks all. Take care.